The fluorescent lights of the tech conference hall seemed to hum with an almost malevolent energy, each buzz a tiny hammer blow against my skull. I remember the sterile smell of industrial carpeting and the faint, cloying sweetness of stale coffee clinging to the air. It's strange, isn't it? How the mundane details can burn themselves into your memory when everything else fades. Before I delve into the core of what happened that day, the day I was, for all intents and purposes, gone, I want to ask you something. Take a moment and write in the comments the city and country you're watching from. I'll be reading every single one of them. It's humbling to think that my journey, my experience, might connect us across such distances, across so many varied lives. My name is Susan, and until that day, my existence was a carefully curated algorithm of efficiency, a testament to the relentless pursuit of, well, I'm not entirely sure what anymore. 42 years old, a software engineer at a leading tech firm here in Silicon Valley. That was my identity, really, the core of who I was. The word "was" sits so differently now. I used to define myself by my productivity, by the lines of code I could conjure, the projects I could flawlessly execute. My days were measured in sprints and releases, my nights in caffeine-fueled troubleshooting sessions. Sleep? A variable to be optimized, unnecessary inefficiency. Relationships? Well, those were complex. They were something that happened in the periphery, a thing to be scheduled, managed, and often neglected. I had friends, sure, or what passed for them in this world of relentless ambition. Colleagues, really. People I saw at the office, shared a lunch table with, maybe a few polite drinks after work. But real connection? Intimacy? Those concepts felt almost alien, almost irrelevant in the face of the next deadline, the next performance review. Love? That was a concept reserved for romance novels. Something I vaguely remembered feeling as a teenager. Something I'd systematically filed away as a distraction. My apartment was a testament to my personality. Sleek, minimalist, everything in its place. It looked like a page straight out of a design magazine, but it felt sterile, devoid of warmth, devoid of, well, life. My weekends were spent catching up on work, attending networking events, or engaging in some sort of self-improvement activity, a coding boot camp, a management seminar, a course on mindfulness, which I ironically treated as another performance metric. I remember even charting my meditation sessions on a spreadsheet, tracking how many minutes I spent in mindful thought. The irony, it hits me so hard now. I was chasing after an invisible finish line, a destination I thought would bring me fulfillment. But I was utterly, completely lost, running on a treadmill of my own design. Spiritually, I was an empty vessel. I believed in nothing, really. Science was my Bible, logic my guiding star. The concept of a soul, an afterlife, some grand spiritual design. Those were antiquated ideas, relics of a less enlightened age. What I couldn't prove, couldn't measure, couldn't quantify was simply irrelevant. I dismissed anything that went beyond the tangible as naive or whimsical. Death, I imagined, would simply be an ending, a cessation of existence, a shutting down of the system, the final error message. My work was my altar and success my God. I was, in my own distorted way, happy. Or at least I told myself I was. I was driven, respected, and well compensated. What more could a person ask for? It was a question I never truly allowed myself to explore. There were whispers, of course, subtle cues from the people I barely saw outside of work, like my mother who'd call once a week, her voice laced with a worry I didn't understand, her words expressing love I didn't feel. Or my few old friends who had started families. I'd receive their pictures on my phone and feel a strange twinge of something, not quite envy, but something I pushed down as quickly as it appeared, calling it sentimentality. I was too busy, too focused, to let those emotions derail my carefully constructed life. Now I feel a grief for the life I lived, for the chances I never took, for the connections I never nurtured. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at the company's annual summer retreat, a mandatory team-building exercise held in some sprawling resort a few hours outside of the city. The air was thick with the humid buzz of forced camaraderie, the endless smiles of colleagues I barely recognized. The whole event felt fake and pointless. Another task to be completed. I remember being in the middle of a discussion with the head of sales, presenting on the new algorithm for improving user engagement, my meticulously prepared charts and graphs projected on the wall behind me. He kept looking at his watch. I saw it as a sign that he appreciated my efficiency, my meticulousness. As I was reaching the climax of my presentation, I suddenly felt dizzy, and the room began to spin. I tried to grasp the podium for support, but my hands felt like they were made of lead. A strange pressure built behind my eyes, a sharp pain lanced through my chest, and then nothing. Just a blackness, an absence of sensation, like a light switch being flicked off. The last thing I remember was the muffled sound of someone shouting my name, a distant echo in the void. I learned later that I had collapsed right there, mid-sentence. The medical team that was on standby for these events arrived quickly, but to no avail. They worked on me for what must have felt like an eternity to the people that were watching. But according to the official medical report, I was without heartbeat and pulse for almost 4.5 minutes. 4.5 minutes. A mere blink in the context of eternity, but a lifetime in terms of what I experienced. It's strange to hear those words spoken about yourself, isn't it? Was without pulse. It sounds like something that happens to someone else, something abstract, something unreal. But it was me. I was the statistic, the subject of the medical report, the person who was, for a brief window of time, gone. Or so they thought. The first sensation I had was one of floating. There was no pain, no discomfort, just an effortless drift upwards, as if I was a feather caught in a gentle breeze. I remember looking down and seeing my body lying on the floor, surrounded by a cluster of frantic figures, faces contorted in concern. It was surreal, almost comical, to see myself from that perspective, to witness the panic and chaos I had caused, and yet to feel completely detached from it. I felt no fear, no apprehension, only a deep and profound sense of peace, a calm I had never known. My consciousness seemed to expand beyond the confines of my physical form, as if the limitations of my body had suddenly vanished. I was pure awareness, pure energy, unbound by the constraints of space and time. Then, I noticed the light. It wasn't harsh or glaring, but a soft, warm luminescence that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It felt like I was being drawn towards it, pulled by an invisible current, a magnetic force of love and compassion. As I moved closer, the light grew brighter, and I began to perceive beings within it. They weren't human, but they radiated such a profound sense of wisdom and serenity. They were beings of light, beings of love, beings of pure energy. I felt a connection to them, a recognition, as if I had known them forever. There was no need for words. I was receiving all the communication directly into my very being, a language of feelings, of emotions, of truths. It was clear, it was undeniable, and I felt bathed in an unconditional love that I had never even known was possible. I remember moving into that light, feeling embraced by it, and the feeling was of pure bliss, a sense of home. And in that moment I was shown everything. It was like watching a film of my life, from the moment of my birth to the moment of my so-called death. Every experience, every interaction, every thought, every feeling laid out before me with crystalline clarity. I didn't feel judgment, only understanding, a gentle compassion that washed over me. And as I was witnessing my life, I started to see my relationships, or rather, the lack thereof. All the opportunities for genuine connection that I had missed, all the moments of human warmth that I had dismissed or ignored, simply because I had been too busy, too focused on my own ambition. I saw all the sacrifices I made, all the times I put my job above everything, and I saw that in that process, I had left a wake of lonely people behind me. People who loved me, that were trying to connect with me. And I understood that I had been living a life completely misaligned with what really matters. I was chasing after the wrong things, building castles on shifting sand. And then, I saw it. The message, the core truth that was woven throughout the fabric of my existence, revealed as clearly as if it was written in the sky. My value as a human being was not, and never had been, in what I produced, in the lines of code I created, in the algorithms I perfected. My value, my worth, was in my relationships, in the connections I built, in the love I gave and received. My worth was in the shared experiences, the moments of joy and laughter, the tears of empathy and compassion, the intimate conversations, the bonds that were formed by human interaction. It was in the simple act of being present, of being seen, of being loved. It was in the beautiful chaos of human life, in all its imperfections, not in the sterile perfection of my work. The beings of light communicated with me on a deeper level. It was not a conversation of words, but an understanding that went beyond the conscious mind. They explained to me that I had been operating under a false premise, a delusion that had clouded my vision and had led me away from my true self. They explained that the physical world, with its endless pursuits and its fleeting pleasures, is but a temporary playground, a learning ground for the soul. And they showed me that my soul's purpose was not to maximize output or to reach a specific performance goal, but to experience love, to learn and grow through connection, and to leave a positive imprint on the lives of others. The divine plan, the tapestry of creation, was far grander, far more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. The meaning of life wasn't an equation to be solved, but an experience to embrace. The gift of life wasn't to be optimized, but to be lived fully. The message was delivered with such power and clarity that I knew, deep in my being, that it was the truth, the absolute truth. I understood now, with a certainty that surpassed anything I'd felt before, that the world of productivity, of accomplishments, that I had built around myself was a shadow, a pale imitation of the real world that awaited me. The divine realm is not a distant abstraction, a celestial kingdom far removed from our daily existence. It is interwoven with our life. It is part of our experience here on earth. The love, joy, connection, and empathy I felt there, those are the essence of the divine. They are not confined to some distant paradise, but are present in every interaction, in every moment of human connection. It's up to us to open our eyes, to break free from the illusion of the material world and to see the divine in the ordinary. Then I felt a gentle tug, like a fish being reeled back into the stream. I didn't want to go, not yet. I felt like I was finally waking up to what life was supposed to be, to what I was supposed to be, but I knew I had a purpose, a mission, a reason to return, and so I reluctantly allowed myself to be pulled back, drawn into the darkness of my body, back into the chaos and confusion of my previous existence. I remember waking up in the sterile white room of the hospital, the rhythmic beeping of the machines a stark contrast to the silence I had experienced. It took a while for my senses to return, to comprehend where I was, what had happened. The faces around me were a blur. Worried and relieved, my colleagues, the same faces that I barely glanced at before. I felt overwhelmed by the contrast, by the sheer difference between the peace and clarity I had just experienced, and the frantic intensity of the world I had returned to. But with that feeling, there was also a burning sense of purpose. I knew now. I understood in the core of my being what I had to do. I had been given a second chance, a second opportunity to live my life as it was meant to be lived, and this time, I was not going to waste it. I had seen a truth beyond the veil of this world, and there was no going back. I knew now that it was my mission to share this message, to tell others that their worth is not in their achievements but in the love they share and receive. The process of integrating the experience back into my life hasn't been easy. My life prior to my near-death experience had been one of control, order, and hyper-productivity. It's not easy to let go of that which was the core of my identity, to release the belief that my achievements defined me. It was like trying to rewire my brain after years of rigid programming. I began little by little by connecting to people around me. I actually saw my colleagues now, instead of just seeing their function in the company. I heard their stories, their fears, their joys. I spent more time with my mother, having real conversations with her, and feeling, for the first time, her immense love for me. I even called my old friends, the ones I hadn't spoken to in years, and started rebuilding those bonds. There were a few awkward calls, and some uncomfortable conversations, but I understood that I had been the one that had created those distances, and it was on me to close them. I started to see the beauty in the ordinary moments, in the simple act of being alive, of sharing a meal with friends, of laughing with a loved one, of taking a walk in the park. I started to understand that life was not about a destination, but about the journey, and that the true richness of the experience is found in human connections and shared experiences. Work is no longer the center of my universe. I still work, of course. I still code. I'm still a software engineer. But my approach, my perspective has completely shifted. My work is not my identity. It's just part of my life. And I have more energy and creativity than before, precisely because my heart is engaged. Now, I focus on collaboration, on supporting others, and on creating something meaningful, something that benefits the lives of the people that will use it, not just a product, not just an output. I am learning every day, and I am enjoying the process. I no longer chase the next goal, I simply live, and I am present in every single moment. I'm sharing my story, not because I believe myself to be special or unique, but because I believe that my experience holds a universal truth. You may not have experienced a near-death experience, but the message is for all of us. We are living in a world that emphasizes achievement, productivity, and accumulation, that measures success by material wealth and social status. We are being told to chase after the next goal, the next promotion, the next accomplishment. But in the pursuit of external validation, we are neglecting the true source of happiness, the essence of our being, the love that surrounds us. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. What are you chasing? What are you prioritizing? Are you investing in your relationships, nurturing your connections, and living a life that is aligned with your deepest values? I urge you to look beyond the distractions of this world, beyond the illusion of the material realm, and to recognize your inherent worth, your infinite value as a human being. You are not defined by what you do or what you have, but by the love you give, by the compassion you share, by the connections you create. The divine light is always within you, waiting to be awakened. Open your heart, embrace the beauty of human connection, and live your life with purpose, with love, and with joy. Your purpose is already within you, waiting to be expressed. The world of the spirit isn't far away. It surrounds us, it exists within us. If you only choose to look at life through the eyes of love, you will start to see the divine in the ordinary, the sacred in the mundane, the infinite in the finite. It's not an experience reserved for the few, it's the birthright of every human being. And that, my friend, is the most important thing I learned.